that the companies that are located here are investing in innovation, and that there's a pipeline of entrepreneurship and innovation that's really going to guide our economic future. And 16 Tech as a physical place was really created to be the spot to bring together startups, corporations, universities, and researchers, corporate and academic researchers, to accelerate the cross-sector collaboration and innovation that's really needed for the future of our state. 16 Tech Community Corporation, as you heard Graham mention, was formed in 2015. We're the nonprofit that's responsible for overseeing the development of the Innovation District, and it really has two prongs to it. We're responsible for catalyzing the physical development, and in that capacity, we're the recipient of some significant public funding, and we're providing a function as if we're the Department of Public Works in the city of Indianapolis. So we're building roads, we're relocating utilities, and we're creating essentially a place that is then attractive for private sector development, for real estate development. One of the reasons why this area has remained largely undeveloped for so long is because it's the site of the city's water infrastructure. Historic and contemporary. This building that we're in right now is actually the former headquarters of the Indianapolis Water Company. So most people, if they'd ever been to this part of town before, it was because they were here to pay their water bill. And so that's a big part of the reason why this land remained undeveloped for so long. And it's the role of 16 Tech Community Corporation to oversee the public infrastructure development, as well as the self-development of some of our key public spaces and amenities. So this building being one of them, obviously food is a big magnet and attractor for a lot of people, and so people want to be close to it, including a lot of young talent and tech talent. The parking lot that you see to the left, if you happen to park there, will eventually be a 3-acre central green as well. So those are some of the projects that we're responsible for developing ourselves. And then our primary role is then attracting the private development for vertical projects like Innovation Building 1, which you can see. So that's half of our role. And that was kind of the starting point for our work in much of the last couple of years. But the primary aspect of 16 Tech is really the programmatic leadership of the Innovation District. So our intention and our mission really is to be about much more than just providing space. And certainly living through the COVID-19 pandemic in the last couple of years, we know that the office, the future of the office is changing. But what's not changing is there's still a need to get people together in physical proximity, perhaps not Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, for 52 weeks out of the year, but it's still happening regularly. And 16 Tech is the spot that's bringing together talent, cross-sector talent across our city for partnership. So I started to highlight the programmatic work that we're focused on is really intended to help train and attract talent to central Indiana. It's intended to accelerate entrepreneurship, and then it's also intended to accelerate innovation. And so Danielle McDowell, who's joined us here, is the Managing Director for Innovation Services and Startup Support for 16 Tech Community Corporation. A big part of her role, and especially having been an entrepreneur herself, is ensuring that the work that we're doing here and the resources that we're bringing online are truly helping those who are innovating, who are taking risk as entrepreneurs to be successful in their ventures. A big part of how we do that is making sure that within the Innovation District we have access to capital. So we have some venture funds and some funders who are located here, mentors, as well as the resources that we make available through the physical spaces. Sure, feel free to interrupt me at any point, and then I'll leave lots of time for questions. Sure. Yeah. Well, so to date, first of all, in the last year, we've partnered with an organization named 76 Forward that was based in Philadelphia, and We were tapping into a larger network of mentors that were there. We're now providing those services ourselves. So our mentorship program is a bit in flux right now, but if you are interested in perhaps have a talent or skill, Danielle will be the person to connect with, because she knows the members who are working in this building better than anyone else. And so she knows whether it's an IP lawyer, or whether it's access to capital, or whether it's a marketing need that they might have. And so she maintains a stable roster of people who she can provide and bring in as resources. As we move forward, there might be opportunities to do some set office hours and things around specific topics. So this is one of the areas that we're going to continue to lean into right now.
Yeah, I'm working with the CDC that's doing there's an incubator for mobile businesses.
Great.
That's something you guys this week.
In what aspect of it?
Management.
Of the incubator or of blending mentorship? We might have some people who can help with that. We do have two VC funds that are located in 16 Tech that have specific missions to supporting minority businesses. One that's got a little bit more of a healthcare focus, one that's got a broader focus. But that would be a great thing that we could try and plug into and help make some of those connections. Yeah, and feel free to interrupt at any point of questions. So, as a 16 Tech today has 3 buildings that are open and active in the district. So we're obviously in one of them, HQO, and this building is not only home to our food hall named the AM, but it's also home to roughly 50,000 square feet of flexible office space that has co-working options associated with it, and then also 15,000 square foot maker space named Machine. Right across from us is Innovation Building 1. The Indiana Biosciences Research Institute is headquartered in that building. The Central Indiana Corporate Partnership also has their headquarters in that building. And then the IU School of Medicine is located in Innovation Building 1 as well. One of the truly unique offerings for our city, and that's located in Innovation Building 1, is some shared lab space. So if you're a startup in the life sciences, there's no shared lab space in the city until we brought this online. And so that's been a really exciting resource that we've been able to bring to that life sciences startup community, and something that we have seen some additional need for more shared labs potentially in the future. The IBRI is in the process of building out a chemistry lab, and so we expect that there'll be some shared services that are open there. And then we're also working hard to bring on an additional building in the district that would have more spec lab space. And then the third project, sure.
Is Cook a part of 16 Tech?
So Cook Regentech, you might have noticed as you were driving over Indiana Avenue, they have a location at what used to be an old warehouse building where beer kegs were stored for the Indianapolis 500. And they renovated that project several years ago. It's really significant in that it's the first location outside of Bloomington for Cook Medical. Technically, they're not on 16 Tech land, but they are clearly our closest neighbor, and so we consider them very much a part of the innovation district. Their staff is here a lot eating, as you can imagine, and they also serve as some of their executive team is advisors to our board. So we're really excited that they're close, and it's a great example of the type of corporate presence that that is available here in 16 Tech for some of our other key stakeholders as well. Yeah, you're welcome. Jack, I might need you to just touch it real quick. The third building.
Wouldn't that be bad at 16 Tech? You can't get your computer.
Yeah, when the wireless goes out here, we're all sweating. It still does happen every once in a while. But, It's, yeah, that is fuel for the people who are here. So the third building that is open in 16 Tech is named EMC Squared, and that stands for the Emerging Manufacturing Collaboration Center. This is also an old warehouse building that was repurposed and purchased by the IEDC. And this is an advanced manufacturing design center. So if you're an individual, a small business, and you want to prototype a product, you would go to our makerspace. But if you're a small to medium-sized manufacturer in Indiana and you're wondering what is Industry 4.0, how do I implement it, that's where you go. And so we're really excited about EMC Squared and the investment that the state has made in that building. Indiana is the only state in the nation that has a partnership with Amazon Web Services and around Industry 4.0. And that partnership is headquartered here in 16 Tech. Also in that building, there's significant investment from GE Additive. So again, if you go to our makerspace here, you can 3D print vases, molds, all sorts of knickknacks and things, prototype products. If you go to EMC Squared, you can 3D print metals effectively, and that's what the GE additive equipment enables. The Indy Autonomous Vehicle Challenge is headquartered there, as well as a battery company, which is based in Boston, which has recently put a presence at EMC Squared. So what's happening in that building is going to be a significant catalyst for additional investment in 16 Tech, and is one of the best examples that we have of how we're bringing together corporations and with some of our public sector stakeholders, investors, and et cetera. We're excited because that building is also in the future going to have some training opportunities for individuals who want to pursue either micro-credentials or certifications around Industry 4.0 jobs, which is just kind of a fancy way of programming equipment to talk to one another. And then also train the trainer program. So we're expecting that building is also going to become a national center of excellence for how do you teach people about what Industry 4.0 jobs are and prepare them for that. So in total today, our three buildings are home to more than 500 people and more than 60 companies. And that's on top of our 20 plus food vendors that are here in the AMP. Of note, our vendors here in the AMP, 50% of them are new business concepts, 65% of them are female or minority owned and operated. And something that we're also very proud of is that 7 of our vendors have direct connections with the neighborhoods around 16 Tech. So, Corey, food architect, his grandparents lived in Hawville, and so we've got some really neat connections. Kara and Monique Hawkins, who are the owners of Wings and Greens. Kara's grandfather was the first person to have a liquor store on Indiana Avenue. So there's all sorts of really neat connections that we've made very intentional efforts to foster through the retail and amenity spaces that we're bringing online as well. And then I'll mention a little bit more about our community work later in the presentation, but we do have a community investment fund that is just getting ready to launch its 4th cycle of awards. We've made more than 40 grants into the neighborhoods immediately around 16 Tech for about $1.3 million. I talked a bit about the buildings, but again, it's really what the resources that are in the buildings and some of the value that we're creating more than space that's driving outcomes for innovation and entrepreneurship. So the co-working and flexible office space that I mentioned, this has month to month or terms that are less than 12 months. It has opportunities so that an individual can start working in an open space and grow all the way up to office spaces that could accommodate up to 60 people. So we're intentionally bringing resources that have the ability and have the business model with them to flex in the ways that growing companies need. You can see some pictures here of our maker space as well, which has options for both individual members as well as studios that can be rented. We have a really cool mix of product development firms, artists, architects, other designers who are in that space, and we also have Purdue Extension for Marion County that specifically offers K through 12 STEM programs out of our makerspace as well, primarily targeted to the neighborhoods around 16 Tech. Yeah.
Going back to the last slide, there's 6 universities that participate.
Yeah.
Who are they and
Sure.
what do they do? And
Sure, thanks for mentioning that. So, if you're, first of all, innovation districts are not, it's a growing model. There's more than 100 innovation districts globally. And oftentimes innovation districts start with university real estate, and they're driven by a single university, and it's intended to identify ways to connect faculty with commercialization opportunities in the startup community. It's a way to create job opportunities for students. And one of the distinguishing features of 16 Tech Community Corporation is that we're not driven by a single university. Some of the land that we own is former IU land, and IU is a supported organization of our board, so we have a special relationship with IU. But we have 6 universities that are here today, Butler being one of them. We're especially proud that all 3 Tier 1 research universities in Indiana have a presence at 16 Tech, so in addition to IU, Purdue and Notre Dame are here. Marion University uses some of the shared lab space, which I mentioned, and then IUPUI is the other. We're expecting Ivy Tech to have a presence at EMC Squared and to be a certification partner for some of the training programs that I mentioned. And so what's really cool is that 16 Tech is becoming a place where universities can collaborate with one another. Graham knows this better than I do, but our universities are all thinking about how to deliver new forms of education going forward, and they're partnering together at times to deliver and do that. Marion University and Butler being, neighbors to one another, and in many respects serving some similar population. So we're really excited. Each university has its own little different flavor in terms of what they're doing here. IU has its commercialization office here, which is really exciting. IUPUI, because they're our closest, they have some really cool programs that they do with their students that are here. And so we're excited because we think that this is something that creates a unique value proposition for 16 Tech, is that we are home to our top universities across the state, and there's more opportunities for others to have a presence here as well.
So do you have an architect school
We've had good conversations with Ball State, and Lorenzo Giggle, who is now the head of, who's now with the city of Indianapolis and overseeing some of their local planning efforts. He is also a professor in the School of Architecture at Ball State. He's on our Design Standards Committee, and so we've had more programmatic connections with Ball State rather than a physical presence. But yeah, they planted a flag at Elevator Hill for some of their downtown options. But it's another program where great question. Since I mentioned the distinction with universities as one of the defining features of 16 Tech. Something else that is unique about 16 Tech compared to other innovation districts is that we're effectively building from the ground up. So I acknowledged what the history of this site was, and that other innovation districts typically start with real estate assets. And we're arguably the first, if not one of the first, if not the first, that's really building an innovation district from the ground up. So it's interesting because we're now starting to get requests from other cities that are in a similar position, wondering, well, how do you create the public infrastructure? How do you catalyze, the corporate community for support for this? And so that's another part of what's happening here in Indianapolis that's distinct from other innovation districts. All right, so pop back up here just a quick second.
So the job coming in is what? Kind of projections you have as far as expanding jobs?
Yeah. So we expect that we're going to be building out the 16 Tech Innovation District for about 10 to 15 years. So by 2030, we expect that there will be 3,000 people working in 16 Tech. There will be mixed use. So we have our first residential project that's breaking ground this summer. We do expect a hotel to be part of 16 Tech, but the majority of buildings that are yet to be developed will be what we call innovation space. So some combination of flexible office space, Class A office space, various maker spaces or labs. And that's again where our role is to attract the private development for those projects, where we expect a lot of the jobs to be over the next 10 years.
Is the old Service Industries, is that area part of?
It is. I should have mentioned that earlier. I talked about the Indianapolis Water Company, but you might also be familiar with the buildings that Bert Servas owned here. And our former mayor, Bart Peterson, it was actually his father who was the developer for those buildings. And 16 Tech Community Corporation acquired those buildings and that land in 2018, and we demolished them. And so we've got some really cool things from the Saturday Evening Post that we've saved and are going to be able to repurpose. But those buildings effectively have made way for some of our public infrastructure projects. Most significantly is a bridge that we're going to be building, which crosses Fall Creek.
That's a walking bridge, right?
It'll have it's multimodal, so it has pedestrian access on both sides of the bridge, as well as dedicated bike lanes and then 2 vehicular lanes. So yeah. I've mentioned at times some of the work that we do with the neighborhoods around 16 Tech. The map here shows broadly the near west and the near northwest neighborhoods that we support and that 16 Tech has engaged with from the very beginning. 76% of our neighbors are persons of color, and we have, again, special efforts to ensure that investment in 16 Tech is also going to the neighborhoods, primarily through our community investment fund, as well as the work that we're doing is really to build talent pathways to make it very clear and to create opportunities for individuals to get additional training, certification that might be a condition to employment for the types of jobs that are in 16 Tech or other innovation sector related jobs. The photo here at the bottom right is from the woman in the AMP t-shirt is one of our staff members, but these are members of our street team. So every summer we also hire a small group of residents who go out and help represent us at different festivals and activities that are taking place in the neighborhood to make sure that residents are aware of the opportunities that are here in the district. We also have in our co-working space as well as our maker space either sponsored or discounted memberships, not just for residents in the neighborhoods around 16 Tech, but students and artists as well. And so this is getting to the question about what's to come, what's in the future. You can see on the left side of the screen our master plan, which shows gives you an approximation of what the district will look like at full build out. In the center, you can see the central green, and there's just an architectural render of what that looks like. And then on the upper right, you can also see the bridge that we're hoping to break ground on this fall. We're just waiting for our final permits from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Knock on wood. So we are hoping to be able to, we're breaking ground on the road this month. We're hoping to officially break ground on the bridge in September, and then it will be complete by the end of 2023. Yeah. No, it's not. This on the right corner is actually just an art. Oh yeah, it's actually right there.
Yeah.
One of our other neighbors that we're really excited by is the Heron. Heron has the Eskenazi Fine Arts Center, which is right here, and so they're actively involved in helping with some of the design of our central green. And we expect that central green will include some type of art walk that has art pieces from students as well that are part of it. Next, I think you're going to ask us something.
I have a question about what do you see as some of the biggest challenges you're facing in making this a reality, but also just in general, because in the very first slide you showed some statistics of where Indiana is in entrepreneurship. Things where we have a lot of
Right. Yeah. So I'll respond first to just kind of the challenges facing the development of 16 Tech. I think one of the hard things for us right now is going to be continuing to attract private development, especially with some of what's going on in the market right now. The idea of being able to get someone to build spec buildings right now or to invest significantly in commercial office space, at least traditional commercial office space, it's an uphill. And so that's one of the biggest constraints to the overall physical development of 16 Tech. 16 Tech Community Corporation, as the nonprofit, our financial sustainability is also effectively driven by our ability to develop the land, because revenue from ground leases is our primary source of revenue going forward. So that's one of the biggest hurdles that we face right now, and so we're working to come up with some creative ways to finance new projects and bring some capital partners to the table, in addition to development partners, in order to be able to do that. Then you also, so that answer is, well, what are we doing to build out the district? But the second part of your question is really about, well, how are you actually going to drive outcomes for some of these gnarly issues that are facing the state? And for me, that's the most exciting point where we are right now. The last couple of years have really been about building proof of concept. A couple of things that we are doing. One, we're making sure to align our efforts with the Accelerate Indy plan that the Indy Chamber has just come up with. Two, the IEDC's innovation team is actually now working out of EMC Squared. The IEDC, under Brad Chambers' leadership, is rocking and rolling, and they are committed to making Indiana one of the top states for entrepreneurship. So we're making sure that the resources that we're developing here and the programs are in alignment with those broader regional and broader state efforts. Because one of the biggest risks is that we're working in isolation right now, and it's really the alignment of those resources. Ensuring that we have talent on our team like Danielle McDowell, who's been to the movies, so to speak, on an entrepreneurial journey, and is making sure that what we're doing, is actually helping create jobs, de-risk to the extent we can by creating startup support and services for startups, those entrepreneurial journeys. And then one of the things that we're also leaning into and hope to be able to launch is better ways to connect people who are in the district. So right now our team acts like a human switchboard. Danielle knows what that Conversite's raising money, and maybe she can connect them to someone. But what we want to be able to do is make sure that someone who's working at EMC Squared can connect with someone who's in our makerspace, who can connect with someone who's part of the Connexus team, without us having to broker all of that. So we're looking for ways really to engineer the social fabric and the community here, just as we've engineered the roads. And I think that's a big part of what we can do to make sure that we're creating value other than space, is to really help with that, with those connections. So hopefully, the next time I talk with the Kiwanis Club, I'll be able to say, here's how we're measuring our progress on these things, right? And this is where we expect to be able to land. And so the best that we can share right now are the data points that we have, and based on our master plan, And based on some job studies we've done, again, it's 3,000 jobs that we expect to be in the district. We expect them to be the cross-sector jobs, and we expect them not to be just all for PhDs either. So it's roughly a third of the jobs that will be here that are low skill, mid skill versus high skill jobs.
Thanks.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Yeah.
The water building, are you guys involved with that, or is that all citizens?
The historic pump house, so that is still an active building, and CEG still owns that land. So they are a neighbor and partner to us, but it's very much an important piece of the city's water infrastructure
I
still.
thought it was read where it was going to be converted to a museum one of the days.
I don't know that, but I've had the opportunity to tour that building, and there's actually individuals who work there in 12-hour shifts and sit in front of probably 6+ computer screens and monitor the city's water supply. I mean, it's a beautiful historic building, and you go in and there's some really high-tech stuff happening there. And the fire department calls the person who's working in that building before they plug the fire hose into the hydrant, to fight a fire. So it's a beautiful building, but it's still critical. I'm not sure if those functions could be easily relocated to other aspects, but there's quite a bit of activity there. And the engineers at CEG sweat when I start talking about their work. But underneath the ground are reservoirs that store the city's water supply. So 100% of the water that serves downtown Indianapolis goes underground 16 Tech. 70% of the water that serves Indianapolis proper is underneath our ground. So yeah. You're welcome. How am I doing on time?
It's 12:47.
Okay, so I've got time for maybe one or two more questions, and then Danielle can stay and wrap up too.
Yeah, so when we do lose good talent, maybe on the younger side, where are they going? And then secondly, what can we do with Kiwanis to help support your efforts?
Oh, thank you. I appreciate those questions. So actually, Jacqueline teed me up for last slide here. So, I mean, I think Butler does a great job of producing talent, right? But we need to work to retain them here. And having a physical location that attracts talent, top talent, is key to that. And that is true even with all the changes that are happening in the office, right? People still have times that they want to congregate and convene. My husband is a tech entrepreneur, 2-time VC-backed CEO, founder, successful exits, running product for one of the fastest growing tech companies in the country. Since the beginning of the year, he's been traveling again, 50-60% of his time. But what's different is those are not customer meetings. He's now on the road 50-60% of the time to meet with his team and to meet with the leadership of the company. And they're meeting in Seattle, they're meeting in Atlanta, they're meeting in New York, they're meeting in Austin. I'm getting them to meet in Indianapolis at 16 Tech later this fall. But they're very much for talent. There's still a desire to be someplace. If you look at what Miami is doing to attract tech talent, there's all these new geographies that are popping up. And so it really is about creating a concentration that people see that there's resources, that it's going to be easy to make connections, and it's a place that they can see themselves planting a flag. I think Butler does a good job of doing that because we've got a Butler grad here. So I know that there are great connections, and Butler does a great job of planting its students here. But as a city and region, we need to do a lot more to make this attractive for young people. And by places like 16 Tech make visible where to go if you're interested in entrepreneurship. This is where you go. You want to work for a startup. How do you know where to start? You come to 16 Tech. That's what we can fill and we can help with. In terms of how Kiwanis can help, lots of ways. So spread the word. We're always happy to give tours. You're welcome to continue to come and support the AMP. Sign up for our newsletter. Follow us on social. We've got, opportunities if you know of someone who's looking for some swing space or flex space. So we've got those options that are here. And then also continue to think of us for hosting events or meetings. We are a nonprofit. The work that we do right now and that fuels our team is 100% through philanthropy. Most of the funding that we've received is for our role in developing the public infrastructure. So if you're ever thinking, what can I do to support an organization that's furthering innovation and entrepreneurship in our city, I also ask you to consider 16 Tech Community Corporation. Yes?
You mentioned big building starting. Is the residential piece already underway?
They expect to break ground this summer. So that deal is one that has a developer-backed bond through the city. So they're in the process of finalizing their project agreement with the city, and then in order to get their construction financing. So that's another project that with what's going on in the market right now, we're all we want to get it locked and loaded soon, but we hope to be able to break grounds later this summer.
That market seems to be ongoing. Bojack
Yeah.
University right here.
Yep. Yeah, there's demand. Yeah.
What do you
That's
think?
going through this in the last 2 years. I mean, there's been all sorts of interesting, twisted turns, but one of the biggest threats to the residential project over the last 2 years has been the price of lumber, right, which has just skyrocketed as well. So we've navigated those issues just as others have.
You
to try and
steel,
keep
right?
things moving forward.
Steel's not in good shape these days.
Yeah.
Bamboo's good.
Yeah, if only we could build our bridge
plenty of that.
of some balsa wood and toothpicks, then we would be set. So, yes. Well, I appreciate you so much taking the time to visit today. Danielle will wrap up, so if you've got any other questions, she's happy to continue to visit with you for a little bit.
You may be here for a while.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thanks. Yeah.